Hello, IP friends. Welcome to the last episode for 2022. I am super excited, guys. Oh my god, it's been a very fantastic year. But yeah, welcome to IP series with Rita. If this is your first time listening to me, welcome. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, favorite, share with your loved ones on any of the platforms you're currently listening to me talk about copyright related issues, trademark, patent, industrial design, trade secret, patent. I think I mentioned that already, but yeah, plant variety and geographical indication. Thank you guys so much for listening to me. Looking forward to 2023. Well, yeah, for my returning listeners, you guys are the best. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for making 2022 a huge success for me. I added my podcast to AudioMac. So if you listen to AudioMac, please check out my podcast on that platform. And let's get into today's recording. So our guest for today is a lawyer from Uganda. We connected on Twitter, but I think last year we were featured on the we're featured on this African IP magazine together. I think that's how I came across him, and then we're also on a similar intellectual property group called African IP. So yeah, that's how I met him, and I just the World Cup just ended, and I was thinking to myself, how am I going to write about it? I had already written about the FIFA IP guideline, but I wanted it to be a bit more spicy. So I reached out to Ivan on Twitter that I wanted him to come talk to us about the recently concluded Qatar games, effect of illegal streaming, business for sports, and any other sports information that he would love to share with us. And he agreed. So we had set up a meeting, but I kind of forgot the time. Yeah, I set up an alarm, but my alarm did not go off. And when I saw the message, I began to panic. I was like, oh my god, is this going to continue? But luckily for me, he agreed. So thank you very much, Ivan. Before I bring Ivan to introduce himself, thank you so much, Ivan, for being very understanding and for agreeing to come speak to us today. So yeah, let's listen to what our guest speaker has to say. Introduce yourself. Yeah, great. Can you introduce yourself to us? Just tell us about you. Let's meet you on our show.
Okay, thank you, Rita. I'm happy to be on your podcast IP series. I'm happy to have been invited and to talk about something that is very, very close to my heart. That is sports and sports law. My name is Ivan Ojakol, Uganda, stroke advocate. I'm a partner at a law firm called Matrix Advocates. I previously worked with some law firms, but I'm currently there now. That is my station currently. I have about 6-7 years experience in legal practice and have developed a specialty in a couple of areas practitioner, but as I've developed specialty in some areas that I think eventually, if you ask me at maybe age 45, what I would want to be practicing in law, and one of those areas is sports law. Of course, I also practice in the IT and IP area. That is TMT, sorry, technology communications. Then we have intellectual property, international trade law, a couple of others. Sports law is one of them also. So I'm really happy to be here talking about sports law, and hopefully we can have a great discussion. I also lecture at a university called International University of West Africa, and one of the programs that we are developing for next year is going to be a diploma in international sports law. So I'm looking forward to have a great discussion with you, Rita, and thank you for inviting me once again.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I did not know you taught. I also just started. I just got a lecturing job, so I'm looking forward to the experience, and also looking to see how we can partner in future. Maybe have like an inter school lecturing exchange if that's something that works. But let's talk
Okay,
about
that'll
how
be
you
good.
got. Yeah, let's talk about how you got into sports law. How did you find your calling as a sports lawyer?
I'm a nascent sports law practitioner, a budding one, if I may use that word. And well,
Mm.
sports law for me, I think for starters, sports has always been a passion. I've literally, for as long as I can remember, been a sports fan or involved in one way in playing sports, football, basketball, and a couple of others. So I've always been an ardent aficionado as far as sports is concerned. But over time, as I got into legal practice, I started realizing there are opportunities, and there was this for some reason very few Uganda lawyers were looking at, or if they were actually practicing it, were practicing it inadvertently without necessarily positioning themselves as sports lawyers. And yet there was a plethora of opportunities across the spectrum. And as I kept on reading up on a couple of court of arbitration for sport cases, I think perhaps my eureka when I read of cases concerning the Manchester City financial fair play issue and a couple of others. I think there was one concerning the CAF Champions League involving and that just tickled me. I was like, but no, this area, how come no one in Uganda is really, or even East Africa, if they're there, very few are really positioning themselves. And yet I could always see, even when it came to East African cases, for example, a big club in Tanzania called Simba, when they would have issues before the Court of Arbitration for Sport or even FIFA, that were representing them were white lawyers or European lawyers. And I was like, okay, but these are East African teams or Tanzanian team, but instead of hiring a Tanzanian lawyer or an African lawyer, they're hiring a white man to represent them. So I was like, okay, let me build a specialty. Let me read up on this. Let me do some small trainings here and there. Well, it could be a lot of education, but I think next year I'm planning to enroll for a program, for a master's program, as far as it's concerned. So I did small courses here and there, kept on building the specialty, kept on reading, and I've been lucky. For example, recently to write in a daily in Uganda, and I've been writing quite regularly for about 7 months or 8 months now, and that has really sort of broken the barrier or glass ceiling. When I'm almost weekly inundated by requests from all kinds of people on issues concerning sports law here and there. So yeah, it's that area, and I'm excited about it, and also because it also ties into so many other areas that I'm interested in, whether it's just commercial practice, the same old, if it's contracts, same old contractual principles that apply. Yes, with some bespoke elements here and there. If it's tech, you mentioned, we've talked about NFT is becoming big. IP is becoming very big in sports and is already big. So it also ties into the other areas that I think were already close to my heart and that had already developed sort of special me. I'm happy to get into this area, and I believe the future is bright. And I believe that's a brief background of how I got into it.
Wow, very, very inspiring. So, I know you did on, the interplay of sports and other area, but what particular area of sports law or sports business fascinates you?
Well, maybe I'm speaking from a private practitioner's perspective, and we are usually accused of being journalists and masters, what masters of everything,
Jack over.
and jack of all trades and masters of none. So, but as far as sports is concerned, I think I am interested in every area in sports. Why? Maybe until a certain time when the field has developed enough that now I can say, oh, I only want to deal with broadcasting rights, or I only want to deal with the media rights, or I want to deal with sports governance, the commercial contractual aspects, what have you. But I think I'm interested right now in just about everything and anything concerning sport. Why? Of course, because again, the area is a bit nascent in not only Uganda but Africa at large. But just generally, I just want to get Ghana all the experience that I can get. For example, if a client has, I should not limit myself. If I got an opportunity to represent a client as a court of arbitration for sport, or at whichever international tribunal dealing with sport, why should I limit myself and say that I'm only a doping lawyer? Though yes, there are certain areas from now knowing the sector that I think could be more lucrative going anti-doping could be more lucrative going forward because there are very few specialists, and it's a very technical area. But I think as a lawyer, because I'm not tied down by, for example, being a regulatory lawyer in a particular sports federation, I think I want to handle everything in sports. So if it's commercial aspects of sports, even things like events management, if it's sports administration, sports broadcasting, ethics, I mentioned esports, and all kinds of emerging areas in sports. I am really interested in that, and I want to explore as much as possible as far as the field is concerned.
Fantastic. So, in summary, do everything until you are an expert, and then you just figure out which one will give you more money.
Absolutely. Until I have enough clients paying good fee notes in a certain aspect, then I can
Yeah.
be like, okay, yeah, I'll concentrate here. But for now, yeah, we want to do everything and develop the sector as much as possible.
So I have a friend. Her name is more into sports governance. I think you might know her, Beverly Amaka. So that's her own
I
area.
know,
Where
I know.
yeah, yeah. So what relevant sports law do you think people should be aware of?
Well, as far as sports law is concerned, of course, yes. I think people should be aware of everything, and that's what I've been trying to do as far as my column is concerned, to sort of give back and educate and just get this information out there. Sports is characteristically and notoriously an elitist area where certain people, and for example, if you look at just the background of how some of the sports federations were formed, you will know and tried to own the product as even the stakeholder in sports is very controversial. For example, me being a sports fan, necessarily, if you look at the definition, for example, in the FIFA statutes, I'm not necessarily a stakeholder. Stakeholders are coaches, footballers, administrators, and a couple of other people. It is properly defined. So they try and seclude, ironically, for something that is supposed to be a public good, they try and keep out everyone else from it. So I'd want for everyone to know what is happening. And as a result of knowing what is happening in the sport, sports governance becomes better. Because as far as I'm concerned, the problems of sport is a couple of people for selfish interests who are just greedy and want to, for example, in Ugandan press, there's more press about sports administrators than there is about the real superstars on the ground, the real footballers, the real guys bringing glory to the country, because of corruption, of all these misgovernance issues and bad governance issues that go on. So, as a result of knowing so many things happening in the sector, you, as a result, are more informed as far as the governance aspects and the administration aspects of it are concerned. And as a result, you can easily to account all your leaders, to put them to a task, and you're like, you've not done this, you've not done that, and we want you to do this. So that is what that would be my take on that.
Interesting. So I know when you were talking, you did mention disputes, sport related disputes, going to appear before CAS and the rest of it. How are sports disputes resolved, not just in Uganda, but give you like an African flair, your own point of view as to how sport related disputes are resolved?
Well, for starters, maybe we should have mentioned this at the start. This thing is a bit controversial in its
Yeah.
foundations, because it claims to be an amalgamation of so many laws. For example, it's contracts, it's the same principles in tort, if it's labor, if it's trademarks, intellectual property, etc. So they have amalgamated all of these principles, all of these different aspects and areas of the law into something called sports law or sports and the law, whichever way you want. Now, and say, have created a special area of the law that should be independent or run parallel to existing national legal systems or even international legal systems. For example, FIFA, there's no FIFA Act in Uganda. There's no FIBA Act in Uganda. Meaning, there is a body somewhere in Switzerland, which ironically is incorporated under Switzerland law or Swiss law, that came up with its own legal system, and system is what is governing football. It must be a public good. So as a result, FIFA now creates its member organizations. For example, in Uganda, we have FUFA, Federation of Uganda Football Associations, and they report directly to FIFA. Now, as a result of that, they have to get away from national courts or from national legal systems which can bog down. As you know, sportsmen's careers have a short shelf life. A guy will
Yeah.
play sport for 10 years, for 20 years at most. And as a result, they must therefore dictated to get the best or the most out of their careers as much as possible. Me, as a to sit back for the next 5 years, and I come back after 5 years to practice, and I'll still practice up to like 80 or whichever, as long as God allows me. So for them, they have up to like 38, 35 at most, or even 40 at most. So they've created these in-house legal dispute resolution mechanisms of resolving their disputes. So, for example, if you're a member of FIFA, like FIFA will be required to have their internal dispute resolution chamber to be like the court of first instance to resolve, say licensing of a football club that is not happy, maybe because FIFA has not given them a resolved at that level. Then usually there is the court of arbitration for sport as the court of appeal concerning sports matters. Of course, that can differ regarding different aspects, different jurisdictions or different member organizations, internal statutes or whatever. But usually you have a court of first instance being an internal dispute resolution mechanism because of the nature of sport again. First, waste time, you have your matter running in court for the next 10 years, etc. So they'll be resolved like that. Then you'll have to appeal to the court. As well, the court of sport can be a court of first instance. When it comes to doping, because of its technicalities, the World Anti-Doping Agency has also said no. Doping matters have to be bespoke. They have to go through, for example, if it's a doping agency, for example, I think in Kenya there's one under they even created a special law called the Anti-Doping Act in Kenya that handles, there's like a first sort of court of first instance that handles doping issues. Then they go to WADA, which agency, things like those. So they, as much as possible, try to depart from the national systems. However, over time, because countries are invested in, countries have come up with national laws or are trying to come up with national laws. I know even in Nigeria, there's a sports policy that is out, and I think eventually they'll come up with a national law. In Uganda, the discussion is going on. In Kenya, they already have a national sports act. Now, I remember again the complexity of this, because you're trying to regulate a sport that has dual reporting mechanisms that says we are national, but we're also international. Countries are now saying, no, we're investing money in these sports. You guys want money from us, but no, you cannot say that we should look away from whatever is happening. So if the national sports tribunals are being set up, for example, in Kenya there is one, and it will, for example, be a court of first instance in some matters. For example, if a player is not happy with not being chosen to represent a national team, you can go there as a court of first instance, then go to the court of arbitration for sport as a court of appeal, or they can, if it's but again, usually that will be for example, in Kenya, the sports tribunal there is a court of appeal from a decision internally. For example, Federation of Kenya Football will first handle the matter internally through its judicial organs, then the player will appeal. So there is that thing of first exhaust the internal dispute resolution mechanism before you come to us as a sports tribunal. However, again, even with that, because of the nature of sport, again, the opaque nature, the lack of transparency as far as governance is concerned, you have very many players going to national courts because they have no choice. You go to a national for a fair hearing, they don't even have a proper dispute tribunal or a proper dispute mechanism in place. So players are forced, or even stakeholders in sport are forced to go to a national court. And as a result, that is causing so many problems. And a judge may not have the expertise to handle a sports matter the way it should be handled. But also, judicial review is a recourse that people are going to. As you know, in judicial review, people can even get remedies against unincorporated or entities without any serious legal personality. And there are many people who have taken that route in order to find recourse or to find justice against what they consider injustices occasioned by federations and different people at the helm of sport. So yes, ideally it should be handled internally, but there are those exceptions that have since come about because of states' interests in governing sport, and also because of a public nature of sport. That divergence that is happening as far as dispute resolution is concerned.
Wow, so much to take in. And I guess Africans or African countries need to do, we need to unite and come up with our own dispute resolution mechanism or body that we can use instead of having
Well,
to.
CAF attempts to have something, but again, they all defer to the Court of Arbitration for Sport as the final Supreme Court as far as sports is concerned.
Hmm.
A Court of Arbitration for Sport, which is which is also under and if you're to appeal from a Court of Arbitration for Sport, you go to a Swiss federal tribunal. Can you imagine that? So in sports, really, I mean, it's so many things, so many ironies created by sports pretensions to be independent.
Hmm.
Mm.
Very true. So I think we have a lot of work to do, but at the moment we keep going to sweets. Which is like the Supreme Court for sports related dispute. But now coming, I mean,
Under the
there's
laws
a
of
lot of
Switzerland.
yeah. So there's a lot of good feedback from the just concluded World Cup. For those that were able to, watch it live, for people like us that were not able to go to Qatar to watch it live, we're able to, watch it on TV. Now, how can sports event organizers make money from all of these sporting events and competition?
Well, they are making money, and the money usually is through sponsorships and partnerships. For example, FIFA has its traditional partners from Budweiser to Coca-Cola to Visa to etc. But also, and again, maybe everyone should learn from FIFA uh, on the World Cup product or even the football product, especially around its tournaments. And they will, for example, because they own the product and as a result they purport to own the IP rights. Well, for example, when it comes to media, they'll have media partners stipulated. They'll be like BN will handle in this region, Supersport will handle in this region. These guys are the licensed uh, are the rights holders. So whoever wants to broadcast has to get a license from them or whichever mechanism from them. So even hospitality, they'll schedule and say these are the guys who are as the world. When it comes to what else? Of course, the normal intellectual property things, they'll protect their logos, they'll protect their, if it's a World Cup in Qatar, they'll say World Cup Qatar 2022, they'll register it as a. So they have tried to use all of these legal soft law mechanisms or legal arsenal at their disposal to protect the World Cup product and earn as much money and keep out whoever is trying to maybe infringe or even free ride etc. For example, in the World Cup in 2010, because FIFA partner for over 36 years, I don't know more than that.
Wow.
A couple of Dutch fans, not the Dutch traditionally put on orange. So
Yeah.
Dutch fans came with jerseys to the World Cup stadium with I think they were Bavaria beer. They had Bavaria beer on them. They were arrested. Some females, two females, they were arrested and taken to the courts of law in South Africa. That's quite interesting because I
Wow.
mean, yeah, that is how overly exaggerated the enforcement can be, and because remember, by the way, these FIFA guys, I mean, and you being the IP lawyer, you'll tell me, they it is perhaps overstepping intellectual property law sometimes. They will they'll register those trademarks in particular countries, but in other countries they will not pass the test. For example, in 2006 in Germany, they attempted to protect FIFA World Cup. I think Germany FIFA World Cup, something like that. But when someone opposed it and went to court and said this was descriptive and did not pass the tests of trademark law. And the German court agreed, meaning that FIFA's trademark was opposed. And as a result, people marks to protect in Germany. So, but they still went ahead and enforced. So sometimes they're again in line with the
They're the
so-called
law, they're the judge, they're everything.
in line with their so-called independence and running parallel to legal systems. How can you
Hmm.
enforce in line with the principle of territoriality in intellectual property? How can you enforce an IP mark that sometimes is not even registered in a particular country? So there's that. So they're really, really aggressive as far as protection. And I've even seen their cease and desists or even threats to like journalists that attempt to uh, with a brand. on Twitter without them being authorized or something like that. So as long as anything passes off as commercial, or you sorry, unduly associating with a mark without authorization, or with a brand that is the World Cup without authorization, they have come up with laws to regulate all of that. Even public viewing, for example, us who watch football, anyone in Africa, I believe even in Nigeria, it's the same. There are those makeshift video halls that sometimes people go and watch football from. So even things like those apparently are banned under the public viewing regulations, and overly aggressive and as possible. And perhaps this is what federations and associations in Africa should also bear relief from. And as much as possible, go hard as far as this protection is concerned. Of course, uh, sometimes there's a major problem with that, because what happens in Europe, what happens elsewhere may not happen in Africa. For example, you're trying to reach out to the African population, a wider demographic. But for example, not everyone has internet penetration, or not everyone can afford a smartphone, or not everyone can is at the level in Europe. For example, yes, I can want to associate with a brand that is the World Cup. I'm not necessarily interested in the commercial aspects of it. I just want to, it's the loving Messi, it's me loving the footballers on display, that I'm trying to associate with the brand, because I feel like football is part of me. I love football. I'm very passionate about it. So there'll always be that conflict, especially in this part of the world, where if you borrow the same things that are happening in Europe and try and bring them here as far as enforcement of media and IP and audiovisual rights is concerned, uh, I mean, you may, because you're trying to penetrate and reach out to as many people as much as possible. But also remember, we same levels of development of commerciality as as the
Yeah.
people who live in Europe or even in Qatar, etc. So there will always be that conflict, because yes, you're trying to reach people, but you're also limiting people. So if you have limited people, then why should they want to watch your games? Why should I go to some app or some streaming platform, which perhaps may be beyond my means, and pay for that, when I can, perhaps go to some illegal, which is cheaper, or even find some makeshift video hall, which is way cheaper, or etc. So there are things like those that come and sort of affect the borrowing, the extrapolating what has happened elsewhere as far as sports management is concerned. Then you bring it to this part of the world, may be a bit difficult. But yeah, sponsorships are a major one, and I think that could be it. But of course, beyond sponsorships, uh, again, all of these on the go platforms that can appeal to the younger demographic, like I mentioned, streaming platforms, apps, etc. That, as you've seen, his goal, a streaming platform, was banned, and I think we maybe you can later. And as far as streaming platforms and sports events is concerned, so the aggressive enforcement and protection of property, and the property being football. Again, the question is, who owns football? Should football be owned by a certain federation, or football is for everyone? So that is another thing we should ponder about.
Okay. I know I came across the FIFA IP guideline. It was really insightful how detailed they were.
Yes.
All of this happens because of the experience that they've had. I know that there was a particular part where they made emphasis on, oh, we have a well-known IP protection when it comes to our trademark, even the public viewing um
Yes.
guidelines. You need to get a
Yes.
license. I know, again, just like you mentioned, there are some places where you just want to go to a bar or watch the games with your friends, and that's the only option where you can
Yes.
watch it. And I'm aware of this. I think it was 2014. I can't remember the year now that it happened, where Premier League had sued a pub in the UK for streaming the Premier League game, and there were issues as to whether someone was supposed to get to actually stream um you know
Yes.
show customers, give them an opportunity to be able to watch the games and all of those issues. So I think there are issues that we can look, come up with our own research and data in Africa,
Yeah.
and then finding the laws to solve our own issues. How can we get access to all of these things, even when it's like an African sporting event? Have our own guidelines. I know we also had the I don't know if you saw the Kelechi Iheanacho case on where he reposted
You made right.
he made yeah, all of those things are there. So instead of copying and pasting, we just have like our own sports guidelines when we have sporting events in any of the African countries. So thank you
And,
so
and
much for
and these have
sharing
been
that.
some of the
Mm-hmm.
contentions and perhaps criticisms of intellectual property in Africa. We must
Mm,
Africanize it, because if we borrow from
yeah,
elsewhere, then we can leave out a whole a whole or even literally exclude everyone. Because I mean, if we love you, want us with me, you understand? You want us to support you, the fan base to
yeah.
grow, but again, you're saying don't associate
Mm-hmm.
with me if you're not paying a certain amount, so it becomes a bit problematic. Yes.
Very true, very true, very true. I
Mm.
agree with you. So for hosting countries, I think I saw a publication yesterday. Was it the day before yesterday? They put out the next hosting countries for 2026 and I think 2030. So how does this sport impact the country? What benefits do they get from it other than spending so much? Because if we look at the statistics or the what's it called, the report from Qatar for this year, I think they're the highest spending hosting country so far. How does it really benefit at the end of the day?
Well, of course, like again, comparing apples and oranges, South Africa, Qatar, Germany, etc. We can just start with that example. Even Brazil, uh, in Qatar, undoubtedly, one, there's something called sports washing. I don't know if you've heard of
Mm,
that term, and it
I've heard,
started
but
in the
yeah.
and and it started in the 1978 World Cup. A dictatorial
Mhm.
country, or a country with very bad press or a bad reputation out there, decides to host an international event. In hosting that international event, it is trying to clean up its image.
Wow.
And and that, yes, there will always be people who will be like, no, Qatar is bad, what? But at least some people will be like, but wow, Qatar hosted a great World Cup. We were there. There was no, it was contrary to what was press or the American press, etc. It is a beautiful country. It is great. Guys are hospitable. They're really, So sports washing, number one, the politics. Football or even sports is political. It is political because, for example, some people, I mean, some politicians are, if for example, during their tenure, a country does not even do well during a sports event, can lose an election. So sports very much is political and impacts politics, and also just because of the fact that one, the youth, it impacts the social culture of a country. So, as much as possible, you as a politician, you must tap into it and find a way of associating with it.
Mm,
So, sports washing is number one. Helps clean up the politics. For example, I mean, Qatar, yes, was labeled this, that, anti-LGBTQ, human rights, labor rights, but it has come out also with with a sort of not entirely clean name, but people are saying, okay, Qatar, yes, people are saying this, but when we were there, it's different. Or even there are now discussions about it is American rights. It's trying to take action. I said that many people etc. And I think are reforming some of their laws.
mm,
Beyond that, human rights, politics. Beyond that is the financial aspects of it, investments into the country. Qatar for a long time, of course, being a conservative Muslim country, for example, was for you to set up the country, you had to set up with a partner who I think would own up 51% if you're incorporating a company. But now I think foreign companies are now allowed to register like everyone, like it is in many jurisdictions. Just set up a branch and now you can invest in Qatar. So that has then infrastructure. The stadiums, those stadiums are not there in Doha. They're now there, and that is going to create a football culture going forward. The Americans had no football culture until the 1994 World Cup. After that, football in the USA has taken off. And as a result, I can assure you, in the next World Cup, they could even finish among the top four. And for just about every tournament, they've been progressing very, very well. However, in again, this is why it is difficult for countries in Africa or even in the poor and underdeveloped world. Some of these, uh, the South Africans set up infrastructure The infrastructure was for the World Cup. And unfortunately, after that, a lot of that infrastructure has become what they call white elephants.
Hmm.
If you go to some of those stadiums, apparently, you find grass has overgrown, they're sort of dilapidated. It is perhaps could not they, they set up infrastructure, stadiums, etc. for the World Cup that could not be maintained. It was just temporary for that event, and as a result, even things like, so for example, clubs hiring out of stadiums and playing with them is quite expensive for them, and a couple of other things. So it became, you create white elephants, and as a result, remember, you spent crazy amounts of money to host an event, and yet you have a poor population that is struggling for jobs, rising up, etc., and killing other Africans, etc. So is that dilemma in this part of the world. However, well, some roads are constructed, some hotels are constructed, but you've set up infrastructure that you cannot maintain. I've also seen discussions like that around Brazil. Brazil is also not at the level of Qatar, it's not at the level of Germany, etc. And all of this taxpayers' money has gone to waste. So it is a bit difficult for African countries to match that. Yes, you for that event, you've gone out of your way, spent whatever money, crazy amounts of money to host you, as far as sustainability is concerned, as far as posterity is concerned, will you be able to benchmark on that and build up as far as that is concerned? Yes, there are infrastructure benefits that come with it, but also in this part of the world, and also because of the nature of the economy, uh, as I've mentioned from examples from South Africa and Brazil, there have been those dilemmas that have come about as a result, and just those contradictions from hosting an event. Qatar undoubtedly is, I mean, it's going to, football in Qatar is going to take off those stadiums, but our part of the world, until maybe we can match that, I don't know. We might struggle with some of these things. Yeah, so there's that. So the politics, human rights, and sports washing, then infrastructure, and also just the legacy of the football, developing the football culture, developing the sports culture, and even for a country like Qatar, which for a long time was conservative as far as so many things are concerned, is now going to properly invest in sport. I think even women's sports is going to take off after that. But also, uh, the next hosts of the World Cup, I think you've seen Brazil, Mexico, and Canada, and then going forward, uh, it is going to become, as far as part of your bidding, the bidding requirements, human rights. You must show that you are compliant with human rights, or you have human rights mechanisms in place, because now that shows you that now the sport is impacting on the politics, on the running and the rule of law in a country. So that shows you how powerful sport is. So there's no, trust me, after Qatar, there's going to be no other country with a bad reputation like that. There's going to be no other country hosting a World Cup.
I was also thinking about the fact that Qatar has gone ahead the movable stadium. I just looked at it from the business angle and I was like, this is a good licensing model. So if you don't have a stadium, we can lend this to you
Absolutely.
for the duration of this. But I was like, that's very, I mean, mind blowing and thinking of the box. But let's talk about my favorite topic, intellectual property. What is the interplay of IP and sports? I know IP. I always tell people IP is the business side of sports. Let me hear from you who
It
actually
could
is
actually
a
be the major
sport.
business side. Besides, I think IP could actually be, and I think has slowly taken over as perhaps number one, beyond entrance fees, beyond what people pay to watch a game. IP could have taken, because IP now goes into, for example, sports without broadcasting is nothing. The broadcasting deals that are happening are on IP, and that is why you have Super Sport taking on in Kenya, DStv versus sorry, it was DStv versus, I think, Safaricom and another one. So intellectual property has become everything in
Yep.
sport. Because if it's broadcasting, if it's image rights, if it's what else? Protecting property, logo, trademarks, etc., audiovisual rights, everything it has become. And because of that, it is perhaps important that we bring this home to players. The administrators seem to have a clue. And I'll speak out of experience. I've looked at some deals that are signed. Now, those deals, for example, will have, yes, you're going to broadcast our sport. Of course, right now it's still in an amateur setting. We don't have, well, maybe you have one sponsor. We don't have proper sponsors yet. But as and when the sponsor comes, this goes to the federation. This goes to the federation. But remember, the federation is using players to sell their product. And as a result, players' images. Now, if you go down again to the contracts between the players and their clubs, or even the clubs and the federation, because there's something that makes them members of that particular federation, there's nothing concerning the trickle-down effect of using the players' images or using the players' products that is going to come to the player's pocket. So there's no money that's going to trickle down. So image rights for me could be the next center. There's a good decision that came out of Tanzania about and slowly waking up. So we need to create awareness as far as that is concerned. Because yes, the deals do not involve the superstars, the real people who are selling the sport beyond the administrators. So IP for me is the real place. If you're a lawyer trying to get in this area, just find a way of tapping into IP and sport, and I think you'll find a way. Because there's so many things, so many loopholes. You can even, if it's going after, like I mentioned, the broadcasting deals that happen, or if you're a lawyer for a broadcaster and you think someone's playing around with the product, if it's what is happening online and streaming and what have you, if it's, again, we have a problem as far as bringing some of the things down here in Africa. It is trending in the Western world, and all the big sportsmen have literally tapped into them. But first of all, because again, in Africa, our circumstances are that there's, right from the top, so many reservations, so many misgivings about, of course, crypto and blockchain technology. So as a result, how do you bring down something that is supposed apparently and engage, bringing a lot of revenue like NFTs as it's being done elsewhere to Africa, which Africa already has the greatest doubts and just does not trust anything digital asset. So, and yet that could be another serious revenue stream. But again, you cannot blame the guys at the top, because again, how much internet penetration do we have? How many people are tech savvy? I mean, how many even smartphone penetration, which apparently is higher than internet penetration? Again, not everyone has. So we have that. There's a digital dividend too, but even in this fourth industrial revolution, we're still lagging behind. But yeah, so intellectual property for me and sports is everything. Is everything. And that is why FIFA is very, very aggressive, because it knows a lot of money. And those are the disputes that are happening as far as sportsmen are concerned, beyond the normal contractual eligibility. But the big boys, like, I mean, you'll never hear Cristiano Ronaldo fighting over a contract, but it will always be about someone using his trademark wrongly or something like that, or trying to protect his image. So intellectual property and sport are bedfellows.
Yeah. The Maradona case with I think it's D&G, where they used his number 10 jersey, and they claimed to have been paying him, and he was like, nah. And you ended up winning. I think that was like, I don't think that was my first case, but I was happy to see that. And then I did a research as to how many African athletes had trademark, and I don't think they're up to 20.
Are you serious?
I think, yeah, they're not up to 20, and I think currently, is it Ronaldo or Messi one of them has about 74 trademarks. And I'm like, just one person. And I was just doing the math. I have to do 74 trademarks.
I know what that shows. Of course, that shows one, they're lucky to be in a developed world, but also that shows the proactiveness of their lawyers.
Yeah.
So we as lawyers, we need to be very aggressive and proactive. But again, that's a problem here in Africa. You try and sell it to someone, even someone you think is exposed, and there's so many, they're so used to so many traditional revenue streams. I mean, they just don't get it. But yes, it's a continuous process, and we just have to try our best and continue building what we can build. Yeah, but yes, that is the area.
Illegal streaming. I know you mentioned that because of your conversation, and I think I saw the Kenya Safari, the DStv Kenya Safari case. I think you posted it, and I was like, "Ooh, this is interesting." So I started writing about it, and I was like, "Nah, I need to get Ivan. He's the one that has the nitty gritty." Because I downloaded the judgment, and I was going through it. I was like, I have to talk to Ivan. Ivan has to come and tell me what's the deeds and what the fuss is about this. And nobody really paid attention to it, especially in Africa. So, what are your views as to illegal streaming? Do you think the IPOs need to do a lot of work? Do we need to put in good structure? Do we need to encourage illegal streaming? What necessarily need to do, both as stakeholders, as practitioners, and the government?
Illegal streaming is, of course, illegal. And it's illegal because someone is a rights holder. Someone has actually invested money in those rights. And again, because of the nature of society that we live in these days, it's not enough for someone to just platform of TV. People have the license cuts across mainstream TV to radio to online. And as you have seen, DStv, for example, has realized there's a whole, they have covered their bases as far as the whole media value chain is concerned. And indeed, it's illegal. But for me, and maybe this is where the contention around intermediary liability comes in. Being a tech lawyer also, is a very strict intermediary liability. Of course, luckily for us, and I think you've seen those discussions in that IP WhatsApp group from the guys in Kenya, because they have a very strict provision on that, as compared to us in Uganda, who wouldn't provision, but we can the intermediary can get away with a small slap on their wrist as long as you're notified. But in Kenya, it seems to say that you must take due diligence and be strict with whoever is posting on your platform, etc. So I mean, these guys were Safaricom was just host guys. I mean, for them, they are a network, a mobile. Yes, both data and mobile. I mean, they have their internet. The internet, the ones providing internet, and these chaps just come and put up their illegal streams on Safaricom. So the of holding Safaricom liable for that is a bit controversial, and I think that is why, if such a provision tries to come in Uganda, I'm going to fight it, because we must also promote innovation. Of course, in the Balancing Act, thankfully, a provision like ours is couched in such a way that when the intermediary is notified, you must take due diligence and make sure they, in case they realize infringing, they take down. But in Kenya, it seems to say you must have from the start, So it's a bit controversial because also of the nature of the internet and what the internet was supposed to achieve. Supposed to be open to all, and sports being a public good, that reached down to the lowest of the masses. There was this, so it was like a match made in heaven, the internet and sports. So as a result, you're spreading sport to all and sundry, to the whole population and everyone. So for me, yes, we must be careful about this. We must really, 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 really be careful about this. If again, let's stick to the provision like what we have in the Electronic Transactions Act in Uganda, of if you think someone, tell the intermediary. Of course, the argument in Kenya was that Safaricom was told a couple of times and they refused etc. Maybe that. But if you tell them and indeed they investigate that someone is infringing on the property, then let them take it down. But from the word go, you come and just, shut down whatever or something like that. It's a bit, we need a balancing act, perhaps. Again, I'm not trying to say that I'm anti-intellectual property, but we because of the nature of society, again, that we live in Africa, be a bit extreme for now. And again, this comes down to the argument of Africanizing intellectual property. Do we want to
Mm.
take the European route or the American route where the economies are more developed? But again, in America, interesting, there's a lot of jurisprudence that comes in supporting quote unquote copyright infringement, Oracle, and a couple of others that have developed over time, as if saying that when it comes to technology, we must tread carefully as far as strict application of IP is concerned. And I think actually Google versus Oracle can give us a very good argument if my client was accused of, you know,
And even the SAS word
SAS
programming
Institute
case.
versus world programming.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are many, and America has has very very many of them. So yeah, that one for me, yes and no. People should protect their rights. Rights holders should make money from there, but also the nature of society, access to information, especially as far as sports is concerned, the so-called public good for everyone to enjoy. That is my answer, Rich. I don't know if I've answered your question, but I've tried to answer it in
I would say
some
you
way.
answered your question with a lot of political flair or spice to it. But yeah, I do agree with you. I do agree with you that we need to tread carefully. We also need to Africanize our own policies and guidelines that the ISP can, the intermediaries can also um, enforce. So instead of shutting down, why not give them a notice and hear them what they have to say and maybe come up with like an agreement as to where the boundaries that they cannot pass. I think that would work better than outrightly shutting down. I think that was like a few weeks ago where they said the popular book platform was shut down and
His goal,
so
yes, which we've
yeah,
all been watching using.
so we need something like that. Have that conversation, and then because we are still trying to, position ourselves as a sports um continent, I think we need to do a lot better.
Yes.
But you're right. Kenya seems to be like ahead of all the African countries when it comes to IP related matters. They are more aggressive than the
And some
rest of them. Who
lobbyists,
like
some lobbyists managed to convince parliamentarians to come up with that amended law. They amended that provision when they came up with a very strict intermediary clause. Some
Hmm.
lobbyists took the day, but I think it's not right. Yes, of course, as a lawyer, sometimes it depends on where you are, where your client, who's paying. But
Okay. You dropped a lot of NFTs conversation, and I know that I think FIFA was it FIFA? I know one of the sports event organizers have recently created like their own digital asset. So how would you say the sports industry is dealing with counterfeited goods, NFTs, and also going into the metaverse? So the general view and then the African view.
well, in terms of NFTs, well, I haven't seen any dispute yet, but I think I've seen a couple of them in the USA, where I think there was a dispute between I think Scarlett Johansson and is it Quentin Tarantino, or one of her directors, where the guy created his special NFT from a movie where she had been, and I think they went to court. So, well, of course, the NFT now uh, was tied to fan engagement, and inevitably there were going to be some fans who are going to counterfeit and come up with their own things. But I think people are the blockchain again. I'm not an expert on NFTs, but I think the blockchain should be able, because of the blockchain's qualities of transparency, immutability, and so if NFTs of a blockchain, I think a blockchain again should come in handy as far as counterfeit, fighting counterfeits is concerned. So I've not seen any disputes yet, but I think court should be a good forum for that in case of anything. But coming down to Africa, uh, Africa for me, again, we are struggling. We're going to struggle with some of those things coming down here. Yet, ideally, uh, they should be they should be helping us and take the sport all and sundry. Because again, internet penetration, lack of education on some of these things, lack of awareness, and just those reservations. For example, in Uganda, there's a blanket ban against crypto, and of course, when you mention blockchain, people think everything on the blockchain is crypto. So awareness and just education. But again, I think something like that is concerned, it first look at the value, develop the value over time, show people the value that is in it. For example, if it's taking lead, take lead, whoever is taking lead, or create a sandbox or something like that, and just show the value that is in it over time. Then eventually, as people realize the value that is in it, then they can be able to tap and get money out of it. Because in Africa, you're not going to make money. No, you are going to struggle to make money in the short term. You need to first develop it over time, show the world that this can work and it is working. If a sports club in whatever, Tanzania, South Africa, and just show them that this can work. And especially because we're Africans, and again, I'm not trying to say bad the market, but also we look at what's going on in the world. If the world, for some reason, I don't know, but again, things are happening in the world, but sometimes I don't know. We just need to learn from the simple. We just need to be just open and flexible to learning. As simple as that. Because some of these things are happening elsewhere, but for some reason in Africa, they just will never happen. But again, as far as NFTs is concerned in Africa, again, going back to sports, these guys many times, and I've dealt with them, and it seems to be a common denominator across the board in Africa. Administrators just do not want people looking into their affairs. They don't want people to stream where the money is going, or how to get the money. And remember, with an NFT, there could be some level of transparency, a proper database. For example, if it's a player, for example, is leaving a Ugandan club, going to Europe, there's a database and there's a value has been created. For example, if it's paying and we're getting money, something called solidarity and training compensation, which is basically money that goes back to the training club and where the player started. Money trickle down, then you can know that has been gotten from an NFT. Yeah? And find out there's a way, even you who knows what's going on, you can know what exactly is trickling down or coming down to the club. So things like those, transparency and just like openness becomes a problem because they love to operate in a very opaque nature. So as far as counterfeiting is concerned, I think, well, I'm not an expert yet on NFTs, but I think we just need to see what's going on elsewhere, how the West is doing it. But again, I believe the fact that it's a blockchain technology, the counterfeiting, if any, is limited. Because there's a record of data is specific, the photographs, graphics are there, and really it may be very difficult for someone to counterfeit it. Though I think, in case of anything, I've seen some disputes going to court, like I've mentioned in the entertainment world. There's you get some sort of authenticity that comes with an NFT. I think there's something called a certificate of authenticity or something like that on the digital product. So I don't know if there's a lot of counterfeiting that can happen, but you can always go to court for evidence that this was, this guy was infringed on the NFT or something like that, or counterfeited. I don't know.
You I think you focus more on digital counterfeiting. But you dropped a lot of NFTs conversation, and I know that I think FIFA, was it FIFA? I know one of the sports event organizers have recently created like their own digital asset. So how would you say the sport industry is dealing with counterfeited goods, NFTs, and also going into the metaverse? So the general view and then the African view.
Well, in terms of NFTs, well, I haven't seen any dispute yet, but I think I've seen a couple of them in the USA, where I think there was a dispute between, I think, Scarlett Johansson and is it Quentin Tarantino, or one of her directors, where the guy created is a special NFT from a movie where she had been, and I think they went to court. So, well, of course, the NFT now was tied to fan engagement, and inevitably there were going to be some fans who are going to counterfeit and come up with their own things. But I think people are the blockchain. Again, I'm not an expert on NFTs, but I think the blockchain should be able, because of the blockchain's qualities of transparency, immutability, and so if NFTs of a blockchain, I think a blockchain again should come in handy as far as fighting counterfeits is concerned. So I've not seen any disputes yet, but I think court should be a good forum for that in case of anything. But coming down to Africa, Africa for me, again, we are struggling. We're going to struggle with some of those things coming down here. Yet, ideally, they should be helping us and take the sport all and sundry. Because again, internet penetration, lack of education on some of these things, lack of awareness, and just those reservations. For example, in Uganda, there's a blanket ban against crypto, and of course, when you mention blockchain, people think everything on the blockchain is crypto. So awareness and just education. But again, I think something like that is concerned, it first look at the value, develop the value over time, show people the value that is in it. For example, if it's take lead, whoever is taking lead, or create a sandbox or something like that, and just show the value that is in it over time. Then eventually, as people realize the value that is in it, then they can be able to tap and get money out of it. Because in Africa, you're not going to make money. No, you are going to struggle to make money in the short term. You need to first develop it over time, show the world that this can work, and it is working. If a sports club in wherever, Tanzania, South Africa, and just show them that this can work, and especially because we're Africans. And again, I'm not trying to say bad the market, but also we look at what's going on in the world. If for some reason, I don't know, but again, things are happening in the world, but sometimes I don't know. We just need to learn from the simple. We just need to be just open and flexible to learning. As simple as that. Because some of those things are happening elsewhere, but for some reason in Africa, they just will never happen. But again, as far as NFTs is concerned in Africa, again, going back to sports, these guys many times, and I've dealt with them, and it seems to be a common denominator across the board in Africa. Administrators just do not want people looking into their affairs. They don't want people to stream where the money is going, or how to get the money. And remember, with an NFT, there could be some level of transparency, a proper database. For example, if it's a player, for example, is leaving a Ugandan club, going to Europe, there's a database and there's a value has been created. For example, if it's Spain and we're getting money, something called solidarity and training compensation, which is basically money that goes back to the training club and where the player started. Money trickle down, then you can know that has been gotten from an NFT. Yeah? And finally, there's a way, even you who knows what's going on, you can know what exactly is trickling down or coming down to the club. So things like those, transparency and just like openness becomes a problem because they love to operate in a very opaque nature. So as far as counterfeiting is concerned, I think, well, I'm not an expert yet on NFTs, but I think we just need to see what's going on elsewhere, how the West is doing it. But again, I believe the fact that it's a blockchain technology, the counterfeiting, if any, is limited. Because there's a record of data is specific, the photographs, graphics are there, and really it may be very difficult for someone to counterfeit it. Though I think in case of anything, I've seen some disputes going to court, like I've mentioned in the entertainment world. There's you get some sort of authenticity that comes with an NFT. I think it's something called a certificate of authenticity or something like that on the digital product. So I don't know if there's a lot of counterfeiting that can happen, but you can always go to court for evidence that this was, this guy was infringed on the NFT or something like that, or counterfeited. I don't know what I have.
You I think you focus more on digital counterfeiting. But event is Mark and Christian Very. So it's an interesting case, and I think one of the first sports-related NFT cases that I have seen within the last 1 year. So that's something that I think you can also check out as well. Then regarding counterfeiting, are you following the Christian Louboutin and Amazon case?
Oh yes, that one. Now I follow. Yeah, I've been following for a while.
So there's a judgment. The judgment is Amazon will be held liable for any counterfeited or inauthentic Christian Loubs shoe.
I think intermediary liability is going to change. It's going to change for good. Our clients, the intermediaries, are going to suffer. It's going to change.
Okay.
We're slowly moving towards that. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about sports and audiovisual rights. What are your views? Let's just have like let's have Ivan's view on sports and audiovisual rights.
Well, again, that ties into what I discussed earlier from things concerning broadcasting, images, etc. So, and that ties into the whole maybe also the IP debate. People should make money from the sport. The owners of a sport, federation that governs what they call organized. For example, if it's football, it's called organized football. The people that run organized football in Uganda, for example, are FIFA. Or in Nigeria, it will be the Nigeria Football Association, I think, right? So they should make money. They have their partners. They have people who have invested in setting up TVs. There are people they have sold through these rights. There are people who have invested in, I don't know, something like that. But again, in line with the fact that sport originally was a public, how are you going to, for everyone else, or the masses, all and sundry, how are we going to all be able to enjoy the product that is sport if there is a secluded class that owns or runs the product? Again, my answers here are in both sides. I'm neither here nor there. Yes, people should make money, but a balancing act must be developed. You are the owner of the rights, but the rights, ideally, sport was a public good in the start. If sports can overthrow government and help, then why should you say that now we are the owners? Why should you say that now we are not allowing you to use these rights? Only these people have rights over this. Why are you saying that only you can watch, yet you want everyone else to watch? Especially in Africa with our young population that you're trying to penetrate. But you're limiting only a few middle class or corporate class youth to enjoy the sport. So for me, again, that is a debate that should be had. I don't know, maybe it will never end until the cows come home to roost, but a balancing in whatever way you do. Either create, well, some people have free-to-air platforms, which is great. Someone will tell you, go and watch this from a free-to-air. But if you want quality or the highest quality, there's this streaming service that you should pay, that you can pay for. Maybe that can work. But if someone just come and says, no, you're not allowed. For example, there's a new law coming in Uganda that even me taking just a picture, if I go and watch a football match and I just take a picture of a league game, I may be in trouble. Just taking even just a picture.
That is crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah. So sport and the rest of you, your way. Or it's only us who should be able to authorize you. So it's going to be that controversial, right?
So it kind of reminds me of I can't remember which of the sporting events it was, but there was this one of the bigger games where the UK created a law that stated that if you shared short videos of if you shared short videos of the sporting events, it wasn't an infringement. Like there was a particular there's a timeline as to what actually share online. It was a big deal then because you had the likes of Vine, where people were using to repost football goals, their hat tricks
Yes.
and the rest of them. And they had to create like a short fair use guideline as to what is allowed and what isn't. So I think that's something that you guys can also consider
Yes.
for this, because it doesn't really make sense. It's actually my phone and I'm taking a picture there because I'm on the ground. But then you look at it from the IP guidelines or photography guidelines for media and press, all of those things. Are you authorized? Are you an authorized photographer? If you're not, are fans allowed to actually take pictures and share? If they do, can you claim, who should be claiming ownership? Is it the footballers themselves or you who actually took the picture? So there are so many issues around that particular law. So if there's something you guys can
Yeah.
either review it, fight it, whatever it is, but I'm not really big on that. I think it's a bit oppressive and doesn't allow freedom of expression at the end of the day. But thank you for raising
Yes.
that up with me. I would do well to follow up on the conversation and see what I
Well,
can.
I'm writing my paper, but I have had a presentation on it at the Uganda Law Society Training Conference.
Mm,
Webinar. There's a webinar that I presented on that particular bill, and also
mm,
maybe I can share with you some of the comments that I shared with the parliament. But of course, as parliamentarians have already been either bribed or something, and they're going to make sure that law goes through and will not incorporate our comments. But nonetheless, I'm about 4 pages away, and But again, you put up. It's good that you pointed out. I not indicated. I don't call it fair use, but yes, I think I'll call it fair use, a fair use exception, deliberately. The problem with IP though, I think there's a lot
mm.
of copy and paste in IP. That's what I've seen.
Yeah.
Copy and paste, and for example, it's fair use. All whichever law just has that section. I don't know if you guys also have that section 15. Because I saw it's a word for word when I was reading Google versus Oracle. It's a word for word without Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act here in Uganda. The fair use exception. It's a word
Ours is
for.
not is
So
not in the section, is in the schedule of the Copyright Act, which is set to be amended. So let's see how that goes as well.
okay.
Hmm.
Cases back in the day, but I think
Mm,
that was sort of strange because I think the FA, FA brings in a lot of money to the government of
mm, mm,
Football Association in the UK. So I think that has sort of changed. But back in the day, times the FA, the Premier League lost so many cases because they're trying to go after
mm,
radio stations, broadcasting, what. And there was always that thing of, these guys, you don't own the football product. I mean, if
mm,
anything, they are
mm,
rebroadcasting, they're using their own mechanism. And that has created a tangible mechanism which
mm,
has become their own. You understand? So a number of cases back in the day, I'm not sure if that is still the case, but I share with me that case and I'll also read up on it. But I think it's a
mm.
very, very in this part of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk sports business in
Mm.
Africa. What has been it seems you're very interested in this topic. What has been your experience when you do like your own survey?
Uh,
What is
Sports business
it?
is big, and there's really, like I mentioned, for a long time, there's been a
Mm,
particular class of people
mm,
that has been enjoying this at the expense of
mm,
everyone else, all that have owned the sport.
mm,
So people have actually been making money. Sports
mm,
business will be, first of all, I can just break uh, what you'd call rights holders, sponsors, partners that come in, invest money, and as a result, maybe make profit or make some money from it. For example, I mentioned Coca-Cola, I mentioned the Visas of this world, I mentioned those who get broadcasting rights, those who get media rights, those who get hospitality rights, those who get whichever rights. And they make money. They partner with these guys and their brands sell. For example, as the number one alcohol uh, 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 provider for the World Cup and for alcohol. With a few days to go, Qatar banned alcohol. I wonder how that will go down. But someone told me, an insider, that he does not think that Budweiser will take on FIFA because one, their contract is about to to expire, and I think they want it renewed. So they don't want to antagonize FIFA. But otherwise, that could have been a very good case. So what happened? Budweiser had been under the impression that they were going to sell alcohol. Then a few days later, Qatar, so FIFA tells them that no, we don't want alcohol at the stadiums. But of course, they designated some areas where alcohol could be sold. So, but still, I believe Budweiser, you have rights holders like those. Then you have the people who have invested in the sport. Those who have invested in the sport, for example, have set up football academies, own football clubs. What else? Own football clubs, academies, and anything in the football ecosystem that develops players. So they have invested, they're putting their money. Some of them have gone unrewarded, have made money. They've realized making money. Of course, one of the ways of making money is if your team is successful. Hopefully, in a country, your team is in a country where there's good prize money, qualifies for the CAF Champions League, for example, or the later stages, and they make some, or even attracts sponsors who come and bring in money, and the owner shares money. The people who have, and as a result, FIFA realizing that, especially in Africa, South America, Middle East, Asia, the owners, the people who first put in money, it takes about 20 years to develop a player properly. If a guy gets a player who's like 8 years and decides to invest in them, a player will perhaps around 20, 24, 23, but later development. So FIFA came up with something called solidarity and training compensation, solidarity mechanisms, and it has properly laid out. There's even a FIFA clearing house that came out later. About it was FIFA clearing house became live about 2-3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. Now there's a proper accountability mechanism. In other words, there's a proper accountability mechanism of how much is a player moving from this club to this club, how much is he moving from here, how much money has been, and as a result, FIFA mandates that there's a trickle down of that money that must go to the owners, the people who had first developed that player. You understand? So there's solidarity mechanism and training compensation, and those are provided for in the law. So you take advantage of that. There's a way you can claim it, but now thankfully with the FIFA clearing house, it's automatic now because all transfers now must go through that system for transparency. So beyond that, the people who have also invested in selling players and being their agents, what they call agents, football agents, for example. The football agents they've been making a lot of money. Some of them have been even against the law, acting in conflicts of interest. Someone asks for the buying club and the selling club and the player, and they're making money off all of them. But FIFA has now tried to streamline that with FIFA agent regulations, and there's now even a cap on how much they can earn. But they've been making a lot of money from that. For example, I mean, if you're a lawyer in Uganda, you may not be able to go to Nigeria, advocate in Uganda. Therefore, I want to represent this player. But if you're an agent, a FIFA licensed agent, you can operate anywhere in the world. And off a player transfer, you can make your cool $20,000 and you can. So people have actually made money from that because, again, there are people who are, what should I call them, early runners or visionaries, and saw the business in sport before all of us did. So they have made money over the years, and I see people there, but the guy over time, he has his small academy somewhere, but he knows he has made his money and is organized, and he knows how to look for money and how to position himself to make money from sport. So yeah, those are some of the ways people make money from sport. Of course, football administrators, football governing bodies, entrance fees, football clubs, entrance fees to stadiums, selling merchandise. Of course, that is a problem here in Africa because, again, maybe the market is not big enough, or people just don't have money to buy some of those things, or people just don't want. So it becomes hard to invest in selling jerseys and selling merchandise and selling what else. But those are some should be, as sports becomes professional, that should be taken advantage of. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but yes, those are some of the ways of sports business.
Yeah, I said you answered the question very well, but I was going to ask a follow-up as to how Africans can position themselves, not for just sports business, but for other kinds of business, when we have like major sporting events. For instance, I read on the business insider page on Instagram where it said that Tanzania had exported. They're like the biggest exporter of meat during the Qatar, especially their goat's meat. And I was like, that's impressive. I mean, for 1 month, majority of the meat that was used in Qatar was gotten from Tanzania. So what other products do you think we have that we can, monetize when we have this sporting event?
Well, yeah, Qatar, which is, and again, you cannot divide, like I mentioned earlier, the politics and the sports, and that is where
Hmm.
perhaps we need to elect the right people into sports. Meaning, you must be educated, properly exposed, know sports business, has certain levels of qualifications. For example, I know for a fact that, well, our former sports minister in Uganda claimed that during the last Olympics, and I think the most recent one was the Paralympics, he was in Beijing and I think elsewhere before, uh, getting into some deals on the sidelines of the event. So that could be another opportunity. As sports is going on, you're also cracking deals here and there. For example, if it's a trade agreement, if it's Tanzania's exportation of meat into Qatar, etc. And
Hmm.
of course, there's a lot of goodwill also that comes with the country performing well on the pitch. There's a lot of goodwill, and you'll be amazed by that. So sports cannot be divided from the politics, and it is important that we invest in our teams to do well, because when they do well, goodwill comes. As our people want to come and invest in that country, because also it sort of puts the country in the limelight, and people start googling, oh Uganda, Nigeria, oh, before you know it, some people come to invest, some people want to visit, more tourists come to the country. So there's that performance, and also just get into proper deals and good deals. But also, we cannot run away from the fact that we have a problem in Africa, and many of our countries are backwaters. uh, I mean, if 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 you see Qatar or Doha, if you see uh, all this country, it is a crazy amount of investment, even for our best economies like South Africa, to host some of these events. I think it's over $40 million in one weekend to host a Formula One race in a country. So how many of our countries can afford that? So that is another problem. We are disadvantaged by the economy, or we're disadvantaged by some of those things, and may not be really able to tap into them. So it becomes sort of a stumbling block or a hindrance to our hosting of or organizing of some of these events. But again, uh, do well on the pitch, have politics at home. I saw Ruto and who else was there? President Ruto and a couple of presidents were at the World Cup in Qatar. Meaning they're not just going there to watch the World Cup. They went there with an entourage of perhaps advisors and investors, and were entering into some deals. So let's have proper people who understand the business of sport and the power of sport as far as opening up opportunities for Africa is concerned. When President Ruto of Kenya was at the recent US Africa Summit, when he was making his introductory remarks, when he was given a chance to speak, he started by saying, Kenya is my former competitor who did not support me. I appointed him to negotiate on my behalf as far as the conflict in DRC is concerned. My former rival who I ran against is actually here in the room with me listening. So the reputation of a country and organizing in-house, organizing our affairs as far as rule of law and rule of law and democracy is concerned goes a long way as far as granting us opportunities, be it sport or otherwise. So I don't know if I've answered your question with that, but I hope I have.
With you, other than going to, watch the games, you also need to have like a business mindset. You're going there not just to see the game, but to also market your country. It's like a give and take, like you said. The international trade aspect of sports comes into play when um stakeholders, where leaders go in there with the mindset of, you know, doing a better job for their people.
Actually, with this, you've given me a good idea for one of my next columns in the papers. I'm going to
Oh
do
my God. I should be credited for that. I
it.
should be credited for
Actually, I
that.
thank my friend Rita for having.
Okay. Let's talk sports trends in Africa or generally. What sport trends have you noticed within the last 1 year? Let's say post pandemic now, because I know during the pandemic there were little or no games. But let's say within the last 1 year, what trends have you really seen?
Uh, Honestly, for me, the biggest trend would be, for some reason, organizers, uh, again, perhaps they realized that there was need for uh, appealing to other than physically. Seen there's a trend of federations of uh, football owners platform, streaming platforms, or whichever broadcasting media. So there's that. Football has increasingly gone to the TV or to the internet. For
Mm,
example, we have FIFA, the federation set up its own TV and broadcasting games. Some TV stations have set up platforms like those. So TV sport has gone online and has gone, but beyond. Sorry, it has gone mainstream media, but beyond mainstream media because of the youth dividend, it has increasingly gone to the streaming platforms. So for me, I think that is the biggest. But also beyond that, uh, again, I mentioned earlier, I read somewhere that Nigeria is developing its policy, and I think eventually it's going to be an act. Actually, the policy is already out. I think it was debated from like 2 years ago. I think it's going to become an act eventually. So countries want to regulate the sector. Countries are either tired of the corruption or just looking sideways as sports administrators run federations into the ground. Unfortunately, there will always be that government interference excuse that FIFA comes up or bans that particular sport in that country. But there's a trend of increased appetite towards regulation of the sport through a bespoke law in a country. So I think for me, those are the two biggest trends.
Be in closing, what would be your final thoughts as to the whole conversations we've had today, and how can we reach you if we need you to write something for us like you're currently doing? We just need to consult you or have you as a guest speaker in any of our events.
Thank you very much, Rita. Really, I've been following your this podcast for a while, and I've seen you doing a great job with dedication. I have my own
Thank
podcast, but
you.
trust me, the dedication is not there.
Thank you, thank
So I
you.
really admire this dedication, because I believe you
Thank
have you
you.
have a lot busy, you have other things to do, but you've been dedicated to the platform. Uh, to have had this conversation, it was both, of course, yes, it was me talking, but even me, I got enlightened and uh, I learned some things. For example, I mentioned I'm going to read up on NFTs and write some things on them, because I think if you
Mm.
mention that Juventus, and I've just go on the case here, it's actually properly all the big law firms, international law firms have written about it. This is a problem. There's so much information from the international law firms happening all over the world. They're always on the pulse. Yeah? So we need to keep
Yeah.
up with it. Yeah. So I'm really happy and what I know. The area is budding, and I believe the opportunities are immense. But of course, unfortunately, in Africa, like everything else, you have to first do the groundwork of developing and clearing the ground, which many times is a difficult job to do, because it comes as it comes as a thankless job, and perhaps many times it's sort of pro bono. But eventually, as the sector develops, as professionalism comes in, there will be so many opportunities in Africa, and I'm happy to be one of the lawyers leading that. I thank Rita for hosting me on this amazing podcast. Yeah, that is all, and have a great holiday and enjoy whatever Rita will have. What's the word? Edited.
You didn't tell us how we can reach you. What's the social media handle if you want us to chat to you
Oh,
up
okay. Well,
online?
well, I my social media handle is Ivan Ojakol, and we're both LinkedIn. I'm active on both LinkedIn and Twitter.
Yeah.
So, because dealing with an international audience, I cannot necessarily give you my number, but yes, that is it. Now, yeah, so Ivan Ojakol, both LinkedIn and Twitter. I'm active whether inbox or whatever commentary you have. I'll be happy to engage you and respond.
Thank you so much. Hi, Ivan. You've been very, very helpful. I hope you had a great time with us today. And yeah, I think that's about it from me. But thank you so much for agreeing
Thank
to
you
do
very much,
this.
Ida.
Thank you as well.
And Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everyone.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And so we've come to the end of our last recording for 2022. Thank you, Ivan, once again, and thank you to everyone listening. I hope you find this episode really enlightening and insightful. If you do find it insightful, please share, like, subscribe. Looking forward to 2023. Happy New Year to all my IP friends. Looking to have or gain more new IP friends. And if you have stories you want me to talk about in 2023, please send an email to ipseriesInfo@gmail.com. But yeah, we're taking a break. I don't know when we'll be back, but not for long. Just taking a New Year break. But yeah, have a prosperous 2023. Bye guys. Mwah.